Hello everyone, welcome to Scorched Earth Toys at anymoon.com's review of Bandai's 160 scale DX YF-29 Isamu type. This is the third release in Bandai's YF-29 line. It all began in June 2011 with an Alto release. This is the YF-29 that was seen in the Macross Frontier movies. We got a reissue of that in May 2012. In October 2012, we got the 30th anniversary Fokker paint scheme. That was reissued in March 2013, and now in December 2013 we got the YF-29 Isamu type. This is the first release from the Macross 30th video game license. All these toys cost around 17,000 yen. The Tamashii exclusive Isamu might have been just a hair more because there was probably shipping, so I think I saw 17,850 yen. As a Tamashii exclusive, it came in a brown shipper box that was only shipped to Japanese addresses, so can be a little tougher to get than the other two, although all of these toys have sold very briskly and well. The YF-29s all come with 3 sets of fixed posed hands and a dagger. You also got the gun that I have attached on all of the display stands that you also got with the toy. There's a pilot figure that comes in the pilot seat already, although he's completely removable. And the Isamu version comes with a replaceable gun, since it's the only toy that has a head with a gun on the top of it. The other ones have a fin that's a little harder plastic. And the Isamu toy also comes with a gun adapter. Let's take a closer look at that. Alright, here we have the undersides of 2 YF-29 toys. The Fokker toy has the gun attached in between the arms, as was standard also on the Alto toy. The Isamu toy is using a little clip that has allowed the gun to be stowed aft of the arm slots that it would normally be stowed in. I guess it's kind of a bummer that Bandai didn't just decide to remold the arms and move where the connector is, but as you will learn in a second, it's not that big a deal. So let's take a little closer look. To get to the gun, you have to remove the wings, pull out the legs. So this is basically a partial transformation to gearwalk mode. That gives you access to the arms, which you can pull out and pull apart. And there you see the full piece. It's probably the same part that was used for the Luca toy. And here we have the gun. We can remove this piece. And this gun differs from the original YF-29 toy in that Bandai has attached a bayonet to the bottom of it. The bayonet slides forward. Otherwise, you still get the extension gimmick and the halves splitting apart. That was standard on the earlier YF-29 guns, and the scope that leans over. So all the same gimmicks, except now there's a bayonet at the bottom. And that is why we've got the gun attachment piece, because that bayonet would otherwise be pushing up against the bottom of the fighter mode. That said, you can definitely use the original gun position if you don't mind the gun pointing downward just a little bit. And I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so here the toy is in fighter mode without the optional gun attachment piece. And as you can see, you have a slight angle downward because that bayonet is bumping up against the neck of fighter mode. But it isn't the end of the world. So for those of you who abhor having an attachment piece, you don't really need to use it. You can even use the display stand with the gun in either with the attachment piece mode or without it. It won't cause any problems. One little fun fact, a little piece of trivia for you. Bandai has re-engineered the front attachment piece. You can see there's just a little tiny nub right here. On the original display stands, there's a screw that connects the front of the attachment piece. And so Bandai had to get rid of that screw to give you enough clearance for your gun with the bayonet. So just a little trivia for you. Okay, so in fighter mode, you have some fun little gimmicks that you can take advantage of. There's obviously integrated landing gears. There are removable intake covers. I've got them removed right now. You can see there's pretty piss poor turbine detail within there, but whatever. You have the ability to swing these jets up and down, which, you know, might help for display purposes. The fins on the end can go up and down. The nozzles on the back of those jets are articulated. Pretty stiff right out of the backs. You also can pull up these guns, and then you have basically tornado parts that are integrated, which was the idea of the YF-29. So here we have the guns extended. Now, one little bummer on the Isamu version is you can't bring the guns all the way forward without running into that head laser. So you would probably leave the guns in a further back position, but when further back, they're not as articulated because you don't have the clearance of the arm. So if you want to articulate them fully, you'd have to have them fully erect. So I don't know if that's a big deal to anybody, but just something to consider. This toy has gotten a lot of complaints because we have green, blue, and purple accents. Also, I don't know if that really matters to you, but something worth noting. I mentioned that these toys come with removable pilot figures. Well, here they are. You have Fokker to the left, Isamu in the center, and Alto to the right. Looks like the mold is all the same, it's just slightly painted different. While I've got the cockpit open, there's also one more gimmick I haven't mentioned yet. There is a spot behind the pilot seat that you can pop open, and then there is a second seat that you can pull out to convert this to a two-seat variant. Alright, here we have gear walk mode. You can have the guns forward in gear walk mode, or as you can see in my Alto toy here, you can have the guns laying down so it looks more like a traditional half fighter mode, gear walk mode than it does with these tornado part type guns. You have a connector that swings down from the back of the toy and connects to the crotch in Batroid mode, and that holds the back of the toy up. So if you were to add super parts, which I mentioned will be available through Tamashii, it won't weigh the toy down and break the back, as it were. You can also connect the gun, the grip of the gun, to that support arm, so you carry the gun underneath the fuselage, and you can see the bayonet on the Isamu toy doesn't bother that ability. It's kind of up to you. You could collapse the wings in this mode to have a smaller back to the toy. I think it looks a little bit better with them extended, but again, I don't know that there's really a right or wrong there, depending on what was going on. Now I will say I do have one fault with my Isamu toy that I didn't have with my Fokker or Alto toys, and that's that these shoulders are pretty loose. So I would like for them to stay up, kind of in this aggressive stance, but you can see they just come right back down. And I can cheat, I could use these little armors on the edge of the hips and force them to stay up, but still, you would like to not have to do that. Alright, so here we have gearwalk mode on the included display stand. I've tried to simulate a hard stop, so I've got the engine wings spun around. This would be Isamu doing everything he can to go backward, but since you can't pivot the actual display stand, instead looks like he's just kind of taking off in reverse, which bums me out. So the display stand's very basic again. They're going to limit your possibilities. Now, one thing I didn't mention, you'll be familiar with this if you have a V2 toy, V2 VF-25 toy. The front of the shield opens up, and you can then slide in the included gun like so and store it in the shield. Another fun fact, random trivia for you. The original Alto toy comes with an unpainted dagger. With the Fokker toy and subsequent releases, everything is painted. So, just random trivia, Alto toy doesn't come with a painted dagger. While speaking of the Alto toy, I mentioned earlier that there's a arm that supports the back of gearwalk mode. When the Fokker release came out, Bandai had beefed up that arm a little bit, made it a little thicker, so it performs better. The Isamu toy has that same beefed up arm that performs well for the Fokker toy. Okay, let's do a quick run through of articulation. As you can see, I've got the toy doing a nice wide A stance right now. The hips give you that flexibility because you could bring the tips of the intake into that gap between the crotch, and that lets you get a really wide stance, which is very nice. You do have right below that the typical gear walk joint, but with the crotch all the way forward, you can actually rotate these legs back and not hit that canard, which is all very nice. So you have huge range of motion for those ball joints at the hips. Then you have that gear walk joint, which lets you get even crazier with it. Your kneecap gets out of the way. You can come all the way back. Looks like you'll run into your backpack at some point. You can twist at the knee. You do have to bring it down a click to do that, or else the inside of the knee will run against the hip. So something to be concerned about as far as durability goes. You have a ball joint in the ankle with quite a bit of range of motion for the toe to come down and a little bit for it to come up. So the feet will move with your legs, which is very nice. So all of that, very good. You can have a lot of fun posing the toy. The guns on the back are articulated like so, and they pivot, which is all very nice. And then you have your shoulders, which you can see mine are still a little loose here, but you have a rotation point, at a ball joint at the end of the shoulder, and the ability to bring the arm outward at that shoulder, which is nice. Rotation point, double jointed elbow, and then articulation at the hands, of the hands, and the wrist. So all of this, very good, lets you get away with a lot. There is a waist joint, which also lets you get some nice poses in. And the head is on a ball joint. Now I did notice that the head of my Isamu toy seems a little less, it might be getting loose now. Did seem a little more difficult to pose, but it looks like it's starting to free up now, so it might have just been really, really tight out of the box. So something to look for when you handle your toy for the first time. For a quick scale comparison, on the left, the Bandai YF-29 toy is about 24 centimeters to the top of the head. On the right, the original Yamato YF-19 toy is about 25 centimeters to the top of the head. You can also see Bandai uses glossier plastic. Yamato used more of a matte plastic color. The Yamato was a little bit darker than the color Bandai chose to go for. Yamato does have, or I'm sorry, Arcadia has a new YF-19 toy coming out in 2014. So we'll have to compare that one later. Just a heads up for you guys, it looks like Bandai is also giving us an Ozma YF-29 in 2014. Part of what makes the Isamu toy unique is the new head sculpt. Here is the original Alto head sculpt. You can see it's on a ball joint. It is actually very similar to the Isamu one, except you have this very medium length fin that juts forward and is made of hard plastic. And then you have these lasers on the side that come out of either side and pivot outward. Not a bad looking head by any means, but Isamu had to be unique. And so here is the Isamu head sculpt. As you can see, very similar. Instead of lasers coming out, they gave us these two little plastic pieces here that extend to give the head a little bit of width. And then instead of that forward medium length spike, you now have a longer straight head laser that can pivot forward and back. But otherwise the front of the face is pretty much the same, so it's not a huge divergence from the original toy. Okay, so here's what the toy looks like on the included display stand in Batroid mode. You can see it's not elevated too high. It's stable enough. It can be spun around. Overall, it works out fine. Again, there's no real articulation. There's nothing much you could do with it. Here you see how the display stand works. It just wedges between the front and the back and holds things in that way. You could also see the YF-29 does a fair job trying to cover the cockpit with these side covers here. That was introduced on the YF-29 mold and carried on to the renewal VF-25 toys. While we're here, let's go ahead and take a look at the missile bays. That's another gimmick on the YF-29. The shoulders feature an opening missile bay. The detail isn't the best, it's just red little dots. Could be measles, but I believe it is missiles. So obviously the other shoulder would have that same missile pod. And then on the legs, you pull the pods away. You angle one forward, the other one comes back. And then you're going to have to dig in a fingernail. Easier said than done. Here it is. And then you can open up the missile bay like so. Not a huge range there. And then the other guy here. Now, I was just about to say, it's not uncommon to pop off the whole bay door. There's a little arm that grabs onto a little pole. That allows it actually to open up a little further, so it's actually nice. Although right there it didn't look very smooth the way I did it. Okay, so those are your missile gimmicks. That's the display stand in Batroid mode. In conclusion, I would say that I really do like these toys, although they can be quite frustrating. My Alto toy, strangely enough, first toy I've purchased, the toy I've transformed the most, is the stiffest of the three right now. My Fokker toy has pretty loose hips, still plenty capable of standing on its own and doing some nice poses, but they're starting to get a little sloppy, and that's worrisome. And then, as I pointed out earlier, my Isamu, I've got the shoulders where I want them right now, and I'm not cheating in any way, so that's good. But clearly they were a little floppy in Gearwalk mode, and that is definitely concerning as far as future durability of the toy goes. So the toys have some great gimmicks to them. They're a lot of fun. They look good in every mode. So again, highly recommended, but definitely keep that in mind. As far as the Isamu toy specifically goes, it's different because it has a little bit different head, and it has a gun with a bayonet. And because that gun has a bayonet, Bandai had to change the display stand a little bit and give us a connector so that in fighter mode the gun wouldn't be pointing downward. Otherwise, it's more goodness, more of the same. Visit anymoon.com for my full article. Thanks for viewing.